Grand Theft Auto games on Nintendo consoles have always been a bit of a pipe dream for many. The series has never really been that prevalent on Nintendo systems, but a couple of handheld entries. But the iconic 3D sandbox titles have never landed on Nintendo's home consoles. Many have hoped that we've seen GTA 5 on Switch as it was a PS3 game, but unfortunately nothing happened until a few months ago, with rumours of remastered Trilogy of the beloved PS2 GTA games surfacing. Then, out of the blue, an announcement was shown with the Trilogy getting remastered graphics and fixes for current gen systems, including the Switch. So now the collection is finally out, and it's certainly something. So without further ado, let's get into it. Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy Definitive Edition contains GTA 3, GTA Vice City and GTA San Andreas with all new improved visuals, new tweaks, GPS functionality and various other things to bring these classics up to modern standards. Now from that description it sounds like a great package, but unfortunately it's an absolute travesty. How can spruce up editions of PS2 games end up like this is beyond me. Let's just start off with the good here. The base games here, without all the issues, are still great. There's glimmers of those great moments throughout the glitches and the visual issues. GTA 3 arguably feels the most basic of the bunch, mainly due to it being the earliest one, but the missions are fun, the rags to riches tale is very enjoyable, and for the first time taking the series to 3D, it's very impressive. As for Vice City, we take everything that made GTA 3 great and just spruced it up a little bit more with a much better story, great characters, and all set in the 80s with an incredible 80s soundtrack. And finally, we have San Andreas, which is arguably the best of the bunch, following protagonist CJ as he returns for the funeral of his mother and is soon led into the life of crime, and it's a fantastic story, easily the best of the trilogy for me. Across the three games, the open worlds are pretty enjoyable. GTA 3's world is the smallest, but it's still fun to explore. The activities and collectibles may feel dated compared to modern tastes, but it's still a fascinating look at where this juggernaut of the series found its footing. As for Vice City, the neon streets certainly feel incredibly 80s, and again the mission design are really fun with plenty of great and iconic moments that I don't want to spoil. And finally, we have San Andreas, and it really does feel like it's laying out the template for 4 and 5, feeling like a big upgrade over the previous two games with RPG-like elements, CJ being very customizable and being able to keep him fit and the like. The game's iconic opening still stands up to this day, and the mission design is easily the best in the collection. There is some new additions and fixes to these games that actually improve the experience, like a proper map and GPS system, which is a lifesaver and is really handy to know where you gotta go. Shooting has also improved, feeling a bit like GTA 5. It's okay, especially in San Andreas, but in the earlier games it is a bit off in my opinion. There's also a weapon wheel as well, and it's similar to the one that's in GTA 5 as well, and it's very handy, and honestly this is where the good things end. But for all the brilliance of these games contain, there's a lot of issues that plague all games, and the problems start straight off with the first game in the collection, GTA 3. The iconic entry in the franchise that popularised the open world sandbox genre is actually the one that fares the worst out of all the games. From the first cutscene that showcases some dodgy character models, as well as some absolutely painful raining effects that can actually make the game feel uncomfortable to play, is certainly a dreadful showcase. It isn't just that, the frame rate is atrocious, aiming for 30 FPS and mostly it stays around the late teens or early 20s, and it just feels very uneven to play. And that's not even going into detail about the popping, the blurry visuals and the crashes. It's dreadful, and considering this is the oldest game in the collection, you thought it would be the best running. Moving on to Vice City, and it's a little bit more of an improvement here. There's some nice improvements to the lighting that, when in the right moment, actually look pretty cool. But unfortunately, it's similar situation with muddy graphics, with a dynamic resolution that's all over the place. The game's character models, like in GTA 3, is a mixed bag. Some characters look fine, and some look like something out of a nightmare. Frame rate is a bit more stable here, mostly staying around the early to mid 20s, but once you get in a shootout or get a few explosions on the screen, it is where the frame rate tanks. I even had a moment where the Switch's frame rate was in single digits. It was that awful. Thankfully it was a one-off, but it was nevertheless worrying. As for San Andreas, this is the one where the most care and attention went into it. Whilst there's still a few technical issues here and odd character models, the frame rate is actually pretty stable here. And at times the game doesn't look that bad. Obviously this is where the main focus was. If the other two games were more like this, then it wouldn't be too bad. Again, San Andreas isn't perfect, but it's leaps and bounds what you get with the other two titles. The presentation side of things is very strange and a worrying mix of things, as the resolution on the Switch is all over the place. I was thinking it's aiming for 720p but rarely ever gets to it. I'm pretty sure the resolution drops to as low as 480p in some points. It's quite shocking how these were even allowed to be released in this state. Playing on portable, it's a bit better due to the smaller screen. I've heard it's quite impressive on the OLED screen, but still it isn't acceptable for the game to be released like this. The game has seen a lot of technical cutbacks all over the place, with effects, reflections and textures all being toned down a lot. It wouldn't be so bad if the games run well, but honestly it's just so disappointing. As I said before, the frame rate is all over the place between the games, ranging from the mid-teens to the mid-20s, with San Andreas faring the best and GTA 3 faring the worst. The game runs a bit better in handheld, but it's very uncomfortable to play with the uneven frame rate. As for the technical issues, where do I begin? There's the character models, which try to improve on the original character designs, and while some look okay, the majority of them look awful, and some of them even glitch out with some strange proportions. It's baffling. We are popping galore with cars popping up straight in front of you half the time, which involves me losing a mission or plenty of car crashes. Talking of crashes, the game have crashed quite a few times. Then there's been a cornucopia of bugs and glitches that can often be quite hilarious, but there's been quite a few that have hampered progression. It certainly lacks that iconic Rockstar polish. Onto the audio stuff now, and GTA is well known for its incredible and varied soundtracks, and for the most part they're all here, but unfortunately a fair few songs have been shelved, which is an odd thing considering how much money Rockstar has. You thought they could sort out something. But hey, it's still a great selection of tunes, with Vice City's electric mix of 80s hits being the highlight. It's shocking to see that Rockstar is charging £50 for this set on Switch and even more on other consoles. Seeing these issues don't just plague the Switch, it also plagues the PS4, Xbox One, even the new PS5 and Xbox Series X. And at the time of writing, the game's even been pulled from PC. It's shocking to see how these remasters of 20-year-old games can go so badly. It was obvious the game was rushed out for the holiday release and desperately needed a delay till next year. It feels very much like the whole Cyberpunk 2077 experience last year. Rockstar even cheekily delisted the cheaper PS2 ports of the game on console stores, which arguably were much better versions to play. I'd have been happier if they bundled up those versions, up-res them and included all the new fixes like the weapon wheel and the GPS system for around £30 instead of this joke of a release. Conclusion time now, and Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy Definitive Edition is an absolute train wreck of a title that is just about everything that's wrong with the video game industry to this day. It's a baffling mess of technical issues, frame rate problems and design choices that make for one of the most disappointing titles of the year. The games here underneath all the issues are actually fantastic, but the myriad of problems tarnish the experience, with the Switch version faring the worst. Hopefully patches can improve the issues, but this is certainly a rush job for the holiday season. At the moment, I just can't recommend this collection at all on any consoles. So with that, I'm giving Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy Definitive Edition a 4 out of 10 with a title of bad. As always, thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you could like and subscribe, that would be totally awesome. And as always, till next time, happy gaming. Bye.